too.
What's that? Okay.
Testing? Is it working?
Testing.
Do I need to like this when I talk? Or can I just talk from here?
It's better or bring it closer.
The problem though is that all my paperwork's here. And then you complain about me moving my head around when I'm trying to talk.
Or when you move, just go like that. Move your head, but also like, this is kind of like your pivotal. Like you just kind of like. And
you know like me, that. I don't pivot.
Pivot!
I'm stubborn.
Pivot! Ross and Rachel, right? They were moving.
Oh, yeah.
The couch. Pivot! Pivot!
Alright.
Okay.
No more Friends references.
Okay.
This is important. Alright. Good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Sometimes it feels awkward to start all this.
It is. Like today seems awkward. I think it's because we've been out camping and it's been a while since we went to church.
Did we record 3 weeks ago? I know we recorded last week in the woods. Did we record the week before that?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's probably why it's awkward.
Yeah.
We had a week off, then we did a week in the woods, and now we're back in our normal spot.
In a normal spot.
And it's kind of warm. And I'm honestly, it's warmer than I want it to be right now.
Yep, it's going to be 110 again today.
I think 108 yesterday, and I think it's supposed to be like 103 today.
Oh my gosh.
Something like that.
Well, at least we get 2 degrees.
But I'm frugal, so the AC is set to like 78 or something like that. And I think this little corner of the house that we're at, it doesn't have much circulation. So
no. It would have air,
and
we
then
have
these
no
lights.
Fans, so this lights.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, well, welcome back. Sorry that our background isn't as pretty as last time. It would have been nice to record a few episodes out in the woods, but we were limited on time. And can't go back there today.
Although that was so nice. I can't wait to edit that. It was really pretty.
Yep. When the heat goes away, maybe we could record in our garden.
Oh yeah,
especially before the sunflowers disappear.
Actually, we were planning on today, but it's too hot.
It's 100 and something. I don't think our camera equipment would last.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time, good week. Yesterday this was 108 degrees outside. We just hung around our house and cleaned up. Actually did a pretty good deep clean. Got like 3 laundry baskets full of books and
donations,
toys,
and garbage,
clothes that were no longer needed at the house. So that's some cleaning up that we got done and managed to stay decently cool during that process. So our house is a whole lot cooler now.
Yeah.
Right. So we're back into Matthew 8:18, starting at 8:18 today. Do we want to? I mean, yeah, we could edit this part out, but I jumped ahead of. Usually we talk about the week and stuff. You don't want to get into any of that, or no?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
I mean, so how was your week? Just hot, right? Like, yeah. It's kind of hard to come back from a nice camping. I feel like you have to kind of get your groove.
Yeah, I don't think it's hard to come back into it from camping. I think it's just you just go back to the mundane. It's just like
same.
Kind of goes by in a blur. It's kind of reminiscing of where you were just at, and then also just get back down to business and then come home and just the same old.
Yep.
But I can't complain. We have a blessed life, so.
Yes, we do. So, all right. We're in chapter 8. So read it. We're going to start with the cost of discipleship.
Yep, so it's 8:18, so if you guys want to pause here and just read. Go ahead and start from 8:18 and then read all the way through chapter 8, and we will finish chapter 8 today.
Yes.
And then,
This is, I think, our 13th episode.
I have no idea.
Yeah, 13th or 14th episode, and we're still in chapter 8. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, I think I said this in the beginning of the podcast, that I wanted to do a couple different chapters every podcast. I think I even mentioned like doing like 5 chapters in one recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was way off.
I mean, I guess you can do that if you wanted to just read it.
Yeah, if I wanted to just read you guys the Bible, which I don't want to do. I want you guys to read the Bible, and I want to just discuss it with my wife and have you guys chime in when you have something to chime in about. And also,
that would be cool actually. If you have any questions or something additional to, we would love to hear about it. That's how we can learn, is to have a conversation around the topics. So.
Yep. Yeah, I've had some conversations with my work family, Linda and Vince, we were talking about last week, just kind of giving me some input and stuff. It was pretty cool. I off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what it was at the moment, but it was nice. Some compliments and just
something work to be done, or
no, not necessarily work to be done, but they were just kind of just making sure, see where I was coming from, and wanted to make sure, keep me in check, but making sure that our motive's in the right spot.
Yeah,
that was cool. It was nice.
Yeah, I think it's good, especially people we trust, to keep us accountable.
Exactly.
Making sure that our purpose is to remain focused on Jesus, and because that needs to happen.
Yeah, I know that it was emphasized on me through them to just, not that we were doing this wrong, but just to make sure that when we do our research, that we are researching authentic websites and getting the word from the right places and making sure that it is true to the Bible.
Yeah.
Which I've been trying to do. I have actually, during some research, I've come across some sermons or some writings that it sounded good at first, but once I got into it and was listening to it, I'm like, wait a second, that doesn't sound right to me. And then I would go double check, and it was not biblical. They were teaching off of something that wasn't biblical. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stop this. I stopped that. I think it was a sermon I was speaking of specifically. So I stopped that, researched what they were talking about and how it didn't line up with the word the right way. So then I stopped listening to that one, and then I made a note. Okay, that's a website, or that's a YouTube channel that I'm not going to do research on.
Yeah.
Or use anymore.
Yeah. And also,
that was earlier. That was way earlier in our podcast here. So I've known from that to double check, make sure that I'm getting the information from the right places.
Yes.
Because there's a plethora of information on the interwebs. You look up any Bible verse and you're going to find.
You can find things that both sides, and you have to really make sure that it's biblical.
Yep.
And so someone might disagree and someone might be for it, but you can get swayed either side, but you have to make sure your motive is correct and that you are staying as biblical as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
That's the main purpose. And so we hope that you do keep us accountable. I don't like bashing, I don't like any of that stuff, and I am for making sure we remain in a sense that's biblical. We want to be biblical. So if you can email us, contact us, or if you know us personally,
YouTube comments,
definitely let us know, and it will open up conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
And also for yourself, and is that something that you align with us or not? And we can have conversation, because not a lot of things not everything we can agree on. Even in the Bible, there are other beliefs. Christians who are a little bit more towards certain degrees in the Bible, more for like baptismal, they are more for that, or one way or the other. And I think it is important to have a conversation. But we all believe the more important thing is that Jesus is our Savior.
Yep.
That He saves us, and if you believe in your heart and confess in your mouth that He is your Lord, that He will save you. Yep. So that's definitely.
I believe that's Romans 10:9.
And that's what we believe it, and we don't want to sway either side.
And we are called to just love on people. Mm-hmm. Love on people the way Christ loved on us.
Yes. All right.
So.
Do you want to start with prayer?
Yeah,
real quick,
sure.
Or?
Yeah, I usually take my hat off.
I know you kind of did that.
Okay. Lord, we just thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to be in front of the microphone and having this conversation with my wife, Lord. Just pray that you put your spirit in me to just be able to speak and just what I'm trying to say. Make it as your word, Lord, that I'm true to the Bible, I'm true to what you want out there, Lord. And I pray that this touches people, that it goes out and it just helps hit hearts of clay, Lord, that you can just use it to mold us into the people you want us to be, Lord. I pray that we just thank you and pray for your blessing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So the first one.
It's called The Cost of Discipleship.
See, mine says The Demands of Discipleship.
Oh.
Yep. So mine also first starts off with a reference to Luke 9:57 through 62. So as well as Matthew. This obviously was recorded in other Gospels. So if you wanted to look it up, that's in Luke 9:57 through 62. But you don't have to do that right now.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying if anybody online
if I
wants
wanted to, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the gospel, the Mark, blah blah blah. Okay.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not blah blah blah. It's
Yeah.
important more than.
Well, you missed a blah. There's 4 of them.
Oh, blah blah blah. Blah.
So this starts off in the previous episode. We ended with Jesus healing people. He had went to Peter's house and helped Peter's mother-in-law with her fever, and then the people of that area kept bringing him the masses. They would bring him people that were sick, they needed healing, to be demon possessed. So there was multitudes of people coming to him. One of the first notes that I wrote was that Jesus is unconventional. We as just people in general, the earthly people, we flock to crowds, right? Like one example that I can think of, like coming to a crowd, was we were coming home from a trip one day, driving around, and we saw a bunch of tents and a bunch of cars parked at a parking lot, and we're like, hey, wait, what's going on? Like I had no idea what's going on, so we pull over. We were enticed by the crowd. Long story short, it was a shoe convention. People were buying and selling shoes.
It was like Nike.
It was weird.
And it was like even not in our style either. We're like, oh, it's like collection.
Yeah, it's like
collector's
Nike
item.
and Adidas shoe collector people, but there was like a huge collection. So my point being is that like we're drawn to crowds, right? So Jesus. I also want to make one more point too. Is like churches today, like a lot of churches, a lot of mega churches, and churches want to grow, and a lot of times the trying to grow a church is not seated in the right motives. They're trying to fill the seats and grow the church and make the church big and kind of be known. Whereas I think what we're called to do is to grow the church to make God known, to make Jesus known, not for the glory of having a big church, but for the glory of bringing people to Christ. We need to make sure that we're focused on that when it comes to growing the church.
And equipping the people,
Yeah.
so that therefore they can go and bring the good news to their world.
It's not, you're not growing the church just to have a massive amount of people on Sunday. You're growing the church to have a massive amount of people go out into outreach outside of the church.
Yes,
the
that's
church
the main
building.
purpose. Yeah.
So I'm saying that Jesus was unconventional. When crowds gathered, he moved on. The very first sentence here is that when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave a command to depart to the other side. So as all these people, the big crowd was gathering, he said, you know what, we got to go. We got somewhere else to be. We always think as people that bigger crowds the better, right? The more people we have, the better it is. But Jesus himself, every time the crowds grew big, he left.
Yeah.
So so as he gives the command to the disciples to let's go to the other side. So in order to do that, they're going to get the boat. They're going to cross over the sea of Galilee. As they're leaving, as they're getting ready to leave, there's a certain scribe came to him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever I go." Right? And this is where the cost of discipleship is what yours says, and mine says the demands of discipleship. So a scribe, just to clarify, a scribe is, I just looked it up before we started this, was it could have been like a teacher or like somebody that was like a secretary of state, if you will. They were like record keepers, but also high up authority of the government of Israel. They took notes for the kings and stuff like that. So this was a well-learned, educated person that worked for the government, basically. So as they were leaving, men came to him. I wrote down in my notes, I don't know how true this is, but I wrote down that they half-heartedly asked, hey, Jesus, I want to go with you. I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus' reply was that foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So basically he's saying that I don't know where I'm going. I don't have he knows where he's going, but I don't know where I'm going to stay. I don't know where we're going to eat. But Jesus is always going to rely on God's provisions, right? But he's just, I'm getting ahead of myself here, I think.
Make sure you go back a little bit. If you want to continue, go up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so he said, I want to go wherever you go. He's telling Jesus, and I think he's kind of half-heartedly saying that. I don't think he's fully intending on what he's
asking.
Yeah, exactly. Asking. Jesus knows that this man's not ready. This man.
Yeah.
And his response is, Jesus' response is that foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. He's saying, I don't have a home.
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing? Are you ready? Actually ready to do this? Like,
yeah.
There's nowhere that's I planned on eating. There's nowhere that we planned on sleeping. There's a lot of trial and tribulation ahead.
Yeah.
Jesus and the disciples, they rely fully on God's provisions as day to day. They go through, and they're not planning ahead for these things.
Yeah.
But they know that God's going to take care of them.
Right. And then I think too, like with what you're saying is when he asked Jesus that, he's not equipped, right? And look, that God knows that being a disciple is a mission. You have to go out there to bring the good news to the world. With his 12 disciples, they walked with Jesus, and they learned from him. They understood who he was and what he was teaching and what he stood for. And this guy, the scribe, didn't have any experience. He kind of just went over there and like, okay, yeah, I'm going to follow you. And Jesus is like, okay, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's kind of questioning the other person's motive. Not just motive is because when God tells you something, you're like, okay, well, am I equipped to do something? Sometimes you don't need to be equipped because he will use you the way he knows what. Okay, let me I think too, like, it just feels awkward today, doesn't it? Like,
it does feel a little awkward today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, but yeah.
Lord help us.
Well, I think.
Okay, let's go back.
How far back?
Oh, for me.
Take me back.
Take me back.
We sang that song today in church.
Yeah.
That's one of the things.
Oh, okay. So when the scribe told Jesus, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go," and God knows what you need and what you want and your motives of your heart, and so I think he's challenging this scribe to learn more and what the sacrifices he has to do to follow Jesus.
Yeah, because Jesus never says no.
Mm-hmm.
He says, no, you can't follow me. But he's telling him, look, this is what's ahead. If you truly want to follow me,
yes.
We have no bed, we have no home, we have no, we don't have the food, we don't have the stuff that we need to have with us that you were used to having. It's going to be a huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's just kind of laying it down like it's straightforward as that. Like,
yeah, I wonder if, because God knows what's in our heart, what we're thinking, and what's in our heart, and I wonder if that's what he's asked. I mean, he answers him by what the question in his head. It's like, well, I want to follow him, but what about all these things that I need? So God's like, this is what it is to follow me.
Yeah. You're
not going to have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then there's a second man. This man's described as a disciple. Then another of his disciples said to him, "Lord, let me go first. Let me first go and bury my father." And Jesus replied, "Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead." Actually, to be honest, I didn't even really catch that this is described as a disciple. Obviously, Jesus has his 12 disciples, but there was more than just the 12. There was the 12 that were with him during this whole 3 years, but during different parts of his teachings and different areas where he was at, he had more than 12 disciples.
Oh,
he had 12, yeah, because this man right here is described as then another of his disciples.
Oh, okay.
And I remember that earlier too. I think when at the Sermon on the Mount, there was multiple disciples there too.
Oh, okay.
But there's the 12 stayed with him for the 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And then they became the apostles. So you had the 12 apostles, but disciples are just the underlings, if you will. The learning from the master.
From the teachers, so that they can go out there.
So I did actually. That's funny because I didn't even catch that was a disciple until right now. But he says, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. And Jesus says, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. This question was actually a question brought to us when we were in our life group.
Yeah, church,
and
yeah.
At that time, I didn't really have an answer for it. But reading it now and studying for this podcast here, I came across a sermon that was talking about it. And this man's father is most likely not even dead yet. This man, so he's not literally saying like, let your dead dad bury himself.
Yeah.
Or let the other dead people bury him. He's saying, so the traditions of Israel back then was that the day someone died was the day they were buried. They didn't wait.
Oh.
There was no like here nowadays we have like a 3 days or whatever. They go to the mortuary.
Yes.
Yeah. The day someone died was the day they were buried, and typically there was a traditional like wake, if you will, where they didn't leave. They stayed there, and on top of that, if this man had died and he was then the disciple touched the dad, then he would have been unclean ceremonially.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that this man's father is dead or had recently deceased is pretty much zero.
Yeah.
This man's pretty much asking, I want to follow you, Jesus, but my dad is either getting older or let me
take care of my dad first and be with him until he dies, and then I can go.
Yeah, and then I can go. But Jesus is not being rude by saying let the dead bury their dead, because we are called to follow Christ above anything earthly.
Right.
So even if his dad was aging and up there, there's other family members that are in there. That's not just this man and his dad.
Yeah.
Because in that time, the whole family was always together. So they had either brothers or uncles, and most likely there wasn't just one child. It was,
everyone.
The circumstances of it are that he would be taken care of. But this man was just kind of giving again, I wrote down half-heartedly. He was a half-hearted excuse as to, I want to follow you, but not yet.
Yeah. Let me wait until this is done, and then I will follow you. It's like an excuse.
Yeah. And again, Jesus doesn't say no. He just says, well, let him take care of himself and follow me now, or see ya.
Yeah.
Right? It's your choice.
Right. It's your choice. And for me, being the cost of discipleship, following Jesus, is really giving up things in your life. And the first one is material things, right? The scribe asked, and I think he's not concerned with material things.
Yeah.
To follow Christ, you are not to be concerned with material things that you need in life. The second one is this disciple, you're not concerned of the events that's happening in you concerning the people you love. Those are the two things, and people are the majority. Pretty much is everything, right? The things and people. So the cost of discipleship is that you have to love Jesus first and foremost.
Yeah.
Anything else comes second. And so to follow him and to be his disciple, you have to put Jesus first and everything else is second. And so when he calls you, and that's what it is challenging you. Like, are you really going to follow me? This is what it's cost. It's going to cost you.
The cost, yep.
And you have to question that. And for us, with our children, it's easy to say like, well, I don't know, Lord, let me make sure the children is taken care of. The thing is, though, he knows what we need and what we want. He'll provide for us.
Yep.
But the calling is bigger than what we desire on this earth. And so in the future, when Jesus calls our children in ministry, we can't say, well, no, let me make sure certain things is in the right order before I can send them out. No, when they're called, you give them up to the Lord that way. And so I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, cause, there's even I don't remember the verse off the top of my head, but it's you got to give up your mother. Whoever doesn't give up their mother and father, that truly can't follow me.
Yeah, and
you know what that?
Yeah,
is?
it's gonna be. Actually, I have it down as John 13:35.
Oh wow! So you wrote it down. See, you're smarter than I am. I just thought of it on my head. I didn't think about writing it down. Can't even get my book to John. 13 what?
I think that's what it is. 13:35.
No, 13:35 is not that.
Oh no, Luke. Luke 14:25. Luke 14:25.
It's a race. Who can get there first?
Okay, we have to introduce that again. Is that what you're saying? 14:45.
Oh, yeah. So 14:25.
So say it again.
It's
so there's the comparison in Luke. What you were saying?
Yeah. So when he says that let me bury my father, and he says that the dead bury their own dead, he's asking him to make Christ above his priority over his family.
Yeah.
And another verse that kind of backs that up is I'm gonna let you read it. You read better than me.
Luke 14:25 to 33. Well, actually, it's a long one. So you guys should. It says the title is "Leaving All to Follow Christ." But the last passage for that is Luke 14:33. Says, "So likewise, whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple." But read over that. Read over Luke 14:25 to 33. And that is leaving all to follow Christ. What it takes to be his disciple. And
yeah, what I'm referring to though about the family is verse 26 of that. It says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and his mother, his wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." So he's telling them that your priority is me.
Yeah.
Not your family, not yourself,
right.
but me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of goes along with what he's saying there with let the dead bury their dead.
Yeah.
You know, your father is not your priority. If you truly want to follow me, you would be following me right now.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so like extreme, but in this world right now, I'm thinking it's like, man, is that true? We live in such a high comfort as Christians, right? We have everything. Everything is good. We can worship on Sunday, but this is. Not everyone is in the same comfort level as we are here in America. There are people in the world who they have to hide, they have to do things, but be a martyr, right?
Yep.
And when it comes down to that very last second, when you are under very hard trial, are you going to follow Christ? Are you going to go and leave everything behind so that you can be his disciple? What if you're the only one? Are you willing to leave all for the goodness of his mission? And that's what he's asking, is that when right now it's so hard to see that because things are comfortable. It's like, I can do whatever, but when something is needed to where we have to go out there out of our own comfort zone, are you willing to leave everything behind? And that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
And so it's a very powerful thing to think about, is that, am I willing to do that?
Yeah, and like anything, I mean, it takes training. It's falling into the Word every day, praying every day, having a relationship with God every day.
Yes.
You rely on Him for the little things, and you do it enough times, it becomes, like, for lack of a better term, muscle memory.
Yeah.
Right? When you hit the hard times and hit the rough patches, your muscle memory is just going to bring you to God's Word. It's going to bring you to Him. You create that bond. That's what you're going to rely on.
Yeah.
Now, if you only go to Him during the good times, when a rough patch comes around, you're going to fall off course.
Yes.
You're not going to have that muscle memory to keep you going, to keep you connected to Him.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to try to find your own ways, instead of, like you said, the muscle mass is going straight, muscle memory is going straight to the Father for all things. And so when you reach that point of anything that's so difficult, are you going to put Jesus first?
Yeah.
And
I don't mean to get off track here, but what was that again? Luke what? 14?
14. Luke 14:25. Starting 25.
Okay, so I know this is not part of our main teaching here, and I actually didn't write any notes, so I'm just going off. When I read this the first time, I got hung up on the word hate. It says to hate your father and mother and wife and children, brothers and sisters. he uses the word hate. I don't know if that translates from Hebrew to here, but in an English Bible, they do use the word hate. My Bible has a little commentary there. It says, does not hate. The essence of the discipleship is giving Christ first place. To quote unquote hate one's family and even one's life is rhetorical. It refers to desiring something less than something else.
Yeah.
And instruction was especially appropriate in Jesus' day, since the decision for Jesus could mean rejection by family and persecution, even to the point of death. Those who feared family disapproval or persecution would not come to Jesus. So that's not hate the way that we use the word hate today.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, it's a rhetorical. So that kind of got me hung up because...
how come a good God could tell you to hate somebody?
Yes, and it's kind of counterintuitive to what he's saying in other areas about love and hate. Right. So I just wanted to make that clarification because that bothered me the first time I read it. And I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that you have to be hateful to people.
Yeah.
It's putting things in the right alignment.
Proper order.
Yeah.
Of what it is and stuff, and then sometimes it's really so extreme.
Well, and I mean extreme for sure. Because think about that. At that time, and in the first century, if your family was Jewish and followed the Mosaic law, and now you're teaching them or preaching to them that you don't have to follow the law, you could be killed.
Right.
Paul, the Apostle Paul, spent the first half of his life killing Christians.
Yep.
Because they didn't follow the Mosaic law.
Yeah.
So that's what it means by they talk about hate. Like it's not that you being a Christian and following Christ is more important than your family, trying to appease your family.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to save your family.
Right.
So if you want to make your family happy, then what you're going to do is you're going to just do what they keep doing. But if you want to save your family, you're going to do the opposite, which could get you killed by your family.
Yeah. Oh
so
my gosh.
it's a very complicated thing, and that's why I wanted to clarify. It's not hate.
Right. It's not that kind of hate to where you exactly. And wow, that's very powerful.
So we went a little bit off tangent there, but I think
that's okay.
I think it all relates.
More, purpose.
That's the cost of discipleship is one. You may be called to go somewhere where you have no home. You may be called to go somewhere where you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. You may be called to go somewhere that is unsafe. If you're willing to go, if you're willing to follow God and He tells you to go, it's best to not ask questions and just go.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly what I'm saying there.
And I like, and to be a disciple, this one is John 8:31. And it says, Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed him, If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And so number one thing is to really be a disciple is know his word.
Yep.
So that you can teach other people.
Yep.
I know that being a Christian, we can just know that Jesus loves us and accept him in our heart, and not have to read the Bible and be okay. You can have a B+ life with the Lord, and I think it's taking your faith into the next level. Our God doesn't just want us to be selfish. He wants to use us, our knowledge, our strength, our gifts, so that we can bring the good news to the world. Mm-hmm. And being his disciple, we have to know the Bible. Because there's so many people who are very intelligent and not wanting to know about Jesus because they're above a certain level of intelligence, right? Yeah. But the thing is, though, they don't realize that God is above any wisdom on this world.
Well, in the Beatitudes, does he say, "Blessed are the"? I gotta look that up now. Getting sidetracked the second time. Beatitudes. It talks about blessed are the poor in wisdom or something like that.
Yeah. For theirs is the kingdom of. It's in the Matthew. It's still.
Yeah, it's just back here a little bit. Similitudes, Beatitudes.
Right here.
Yeah.
Are you done?
No. What's up?
I made a helmet.
Did you?
iron helmet with emerald.
Bobby,
Okay,
come here.
cool.
Say hi to everybody. Come here. Come in the
Go
middle.
next to Mom in the middle.
Come here.
Say hi, everybody. I'm Bobby.
Say, I'm Bobby.
I'm Bobby.
Right here, right here. Say,
Hi, I'm Bobby.
you want to tell them you love Jesus? You're shy. Do you love Jesus? Yes, yeah. Say, pray for my mom and dad.
I pray for my mom and dad.
Okay. Love you. Thank you, Bob.
Dad, I did an helmet with emerald on it. And
Yeah?
leather pants with iron on it.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll come see it when I'm all done, okay? I don't remember where that is.
5. Matthew 5.
Is it Matthew? I know, but I don't see it in there. I was looking at the other ones. Yeah, it's fine. I don't remember what I was talking about now. I got confused. What is it? Should we just edit that out and keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
So where are we now? We're kind of got off track a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. We got off track and then had a distraction. And then, so
A little cute distraction.
Yeah.
Distraction.
and he is a distraction too. don't get it wrong. A boy can
He
just be
is,
destructive.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm in the wrong page. There we go.
Do you have any more for the
No, I think that's pretty much it.
cost
So
of discipleship?
yeah, no, I think that's unless you do.
Oh, and I put the 12 his disciples, right?
Yeah.
They followed Jesus, and one betrayed him. You know, it doesn't mean that you know him and all the things you do. You always have to make sure that your motive is right. That every day you're walking in the Lord and with him daily.
Yep.
Because you don't want to putting anyone in front of him is betraying him for me, right? Like if you don't put him first, it's a betrayal for him because he wants to be your number one. He doesn't want idols to be anybody or anything by him himself. So we always have to pray to make sure in a daily basis that we put him first. And so that's my prayer for myself, is putting God first and above all else.
Yep.
So I have a question here for everybody. Is there anything in your life right now that you need to lay down, give up, hand over, so that you can carry your cross and follow Jesus? And so something that we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're holding on to that you need to hand over so that you are free to carry your own cross and follow Jesus?
Yeah, and actually that'd be a good question to ask yourself every morning.
Yes. Is there anything we need to give up today so that we can carry our own cross and follow Jesus?
Yeah, you could even consider it like fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lord.
So,
So now we're in the
we're going to be starting verse 23.
23. Mine says, "Wind and wave, obey Jesus." Wind and wave, obey Jesus.
Okay, yeah, mine says the sea is stilled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we'll just a little backtrack here. They healed a bunch of people in the town. I forget. I think where Peter's mother-in-law lived. Peter and his household. They got big crowds.
Yes.
They were packing up, getting ready to go. And those the scribe and the disciple half-heartedly asked to go. And half-heartedly, I'm using could be a little bit
Could
wrong
be wrong, but like
interpretation
it's
of
just
it. But
yeah.
just for a quick explanation. Now they are on the boat, getting ready to leave. Or actually, they are on the boat, leaving. They are leaving the crowds, and so they get onto the boat, which is probably a good-sized boat for the day. There's 12. There's at least 13 people, right? You got
Yeah.
Jesus and you have the 12 disciples. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's other people that aren't accounted for. Maybe some of the women, some of the wives. Maybe who knows. So let's just roughly say there's probably 20 people to 30 people. So it's a good-sized boat.
Yeah.
Right. It's not no yacht, but it's probably a big fishing boat for that day. And you got to remember that there's seasoned fishermen on this boat.
Yeah.
You have at least 4 that we know of.
Oh yeah, that's
you have,
so they would know the waves. And
yeah, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They were fishermen.
Right.
They know this water. They know this lake. They've been there, or the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah. And they know the motion of the waters.
Yeah. So some of the other some of the sermons I was listening to kind of explain the area, the mountainous region. The winds come down, and it can be like a super still waters, and then the winds change, and all of a sudden now you get this influx in the way that the terrain is shaped. You have violent wind, and you can have some violent storms created in there. So Jesus is leaving. He's leaving the crowds on his way to a different region. So now they're on the boat in the middle, probably about 3 miles in or something like that, roughly. The storm uprised and became violent, and the disciples became scared. All right. Make sure that I'm in the right spot here. Yeah. So my Bible says, suddenly a great tempest arose on the sea, so that the boat was covered with waves, but Jesus was asleep. And I made a note here that these men were seasoned sailors. At least 4 of them: Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They were fishermen. The storm was abnormally large. I even made a note of supernaturally large.
Yeah.
I think that this storm, in my opinion, was purposely happened at this time. I don't think it was a coincidence that they jumped on the water and this big storm came. I think that this was a teaching moment that God was going to use, and that's why Jesus was asleep at this time. And this big storm came through. I think it's a test of their faith, a test of their fear.
Yeah. And as far as now, when you hear worship music, and when they describe something that's going on in your life that's unbearable, they describe it as a storm.
Yep.
So with this is an example of what you're saying. It's a teaching moment, as well as when you are in a trial, that is a teaching moment for Jesus.
Yeah. So Jesus, this major storm's coming through. You have waves coming up over the boat sides.
Yeah.
I'm not a sailor. I don't know the terminology of the boats, but the waves are crashing over the sides of the boat. There's water splashing on him. Jesus is asleep. I mean, how would anybody sleep through this?
Yes.
Right. So he's asleep. The disciples are now getting all worried and running to getting all frantic. There's earlier in the books when Jesus was being tempted, Satan, he quotes, I believe it was Isaiah, the prophet, about the angels will protect you. You're going to be safe, right? So Jesus has already gone over this.
Yeah.
But they're still afraid that they're going to perish. They even stated, "Lord, save us. We are perishing."
Yeah.
Right.
But that's in Matthew 8:25.
But Jesus is going to be protected, right? And they know this, but the problem is that their faith fails them, and now they're focused on fear.
Yeah.
So I believe this was a training exercise of faith. Fear has a close connection of unbelief. Jesus responded with a correction. So they woke up Jesus. They said, "Lord, save us. We are perishing." But he woke up. He said to them, "Why are you fearful, O you of little faith?" So Jesus responds with a correction. Why are you fearful? And then he calmed the waters. I think Jesus did this to expose our natural reaction to fear. When something scary pops up, we become fearful. Right?
Yeah.
And that, my glasses are bothering me when it's this close. So Jesus did this to expose our natural reaction to fear, and then to communicate that he is here and that he can be trusted. No matter what the storm is, we need to look at those circumstances through eyes of faith.
Yes. I wrote a lot that the peace, right? We talk a lot of times, Christian talks about that peace that transcends all understanding. And this is what it is. It's like when we experience, in the disciples here, are experiencing this, it is fearful in the midst of this storm. But realizing that, man, visually, Jesus is there taking a nap. And that's how kind of where we have to be, not in our own flesh, but reaching out,
rooted in Him,
rooted in Jesus, in that peace that He can give you, and that in the midst of chaos and anything, that we can go and have sleep at night knowing that Jesus is going to take care of us.
We are with Him, that He's there.
Yes.
So at the end of what I just read myself is that we need to look at those circumstances with eyes of faith. There's a couple, I wanted to read a couple things. The story of, so I'm going to, actually this one here I'm going to kind of summarize. But the story of Elijah, it's the second Kings chapter 6. Elijah the prophet, he was prophesying to the king of Israel about their enemies, the king of Aram. So the king of Aram they're fighting with the king of Israel, and king of Aram has a stronger army, but for some reason, whenever they go to attack, the king of Israel is able to predict what's happening and move. Well, it's not the king of Israel that's predicting it; it's the prophet Elisha. Elisha's prophesying to the king, and then being able to thwart the attack. So the king of Aram finds out, he's asking his people, like, who's ratting us out? Who keeps giving him the information? And one of his people say, it's not us. None of us are giving him information. They have a prophet. They have a prophet that's prophesying what we're going to do, and they're even prophesying when you're asleep.
Wow.
And so then that king of Aram sent an army to kill the prophet Elisha. So the prophet Elisha is asleep, and as he's sleeping, the army of Aram comes around and surrounds them. And in the morning, early morning, the servant of Elisha wakes up, opens the tent to do whatever servants do, and he sees the army of Aram all around, surrounded.
Wow.
He then rushed in, and he's like, Elisha, or master, whatever he would call him, there's an army out there that's surrounded us.
Yeah.
And Elisha prays calmly, wakes up, calmly prays that the servant's eyes are open. Not his eyes, because visually with his human eyes, he saw the army surrounding them.
Yeah.
So Elisha is praying that the servant's eyes are opened. His eyes of faith are opened.
Yeah.
So when Elisha finished his praying, the servant goes back out and sees in between the army of Aram is the angels and the army of angels, and his eyes of faith were opened, and he sees all that. This is what Jesus is talking about on this boat. He's there, and that's why he says, "You have little faith. Why are you so fearful?" It's the same thing. Then Elisha was basically saying, "Why are you so fearful? Just look at it. We're protected. The people are there."
Oh man.
So so I have right now, I think it's verse 14 through 17. So it's 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 14 through 17 is what I wrote down here. I forget exactly what that's referring to, but it has that whole story there.
Wow.
I know that's in that Kings chapter 2.
Wow.
You want to look up verse, 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 17?
What is it?
It's 2 Kings chapter 6.
2 Kings chapter 6. Okay.
Verse 14 through 17.
14 through 17. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, read it for me first.
I don't read what you need.
So I have written down here, so it's the story of Elisha, 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 14 through 17.
Okay. Therefore he sent horses and chariots and great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, Alas, my master, what shall we do? So he answered, Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see. Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountains was full of horses and chariots of fire all around. Sorry, I can't finish reading it because it's so powerful. Okay, let me get myself together here. And behold, the mountains was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
And I wrote, so our eyes see earthly things.
Yes.
We need to start looking through eyes of faith.
Yes.
I also have written down Luke 10, 23 to 24. So let me look that up.
Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. I can't even. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
10. So
Our eyes, our faith, we can't see the things that's going on around us, even especially in the midst of a storm. But we are, God's army is always with us. Oh.
So I also have my notes here that I wrote down was Luke 10:23-24. So Luke 10:23 is, then he turned to his disciples and privately. He turned to his disciples and said privately, "Blessed are the eyes which see the things you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it, and hear what you hear, and have not heard it."
Wow.
He's not talking about sight of what we see of our own eyes.
On our own eyes.
He's talking about sight that we see through faith.
Yes.
And the things that we hear through faith.
Yes.
Because all the people of that region were seeing and hearing the things that were being said. Only the people that had faith in what was being said and what was being shown are going to be able to do what God is saying here.
Yeah. Oh.
And then
that's
I wrote,
so good.
"We see with our human eyes is not the whole story. Lean not to our own understanding. We belong to Him. There is nothing greater than Him."
Oh, thank you, Jesus. Oh, that's so powerful. Oh, you know what, though? I think it's because it's like, this week, I've been training a lot at work, and Robbie knows how much I felt like in the midst of chaos in my head. I had to learn a lot of things at work, and this is like I prayed for over and over again. I just relied on His word and that peace that transcends all understanding. And so when I start to like focus on the problems, if I don't focus on God, I'm focusing on that problem and it's not getting solved. It's so crazy to think that.
And you're in turmoil, you're in distress,
yeah, and
you're not
fear,
living on the moment.
Yeah, and then when I start to like ask the Lord to give me that peace, I start to, not that I didn't care about the problem, but I was able to solve it because I was able to be clear-minded.
Yep.
And even if I didn't have the tools or the means to solve it, God has given me that peace. And therefore, I was able to walk with Him in a clear mind.
Yep.
But it's such a powerful to hold on to. So if you're in the midst of chaos right now in your storm, go back to His word and that Jesus napped. He slept in the midst of that storm.
Yep.
And so you can have that kind of peace if you ask Him.
Yeah, and then also like His power, how He's so powerful that He woke up and just calmed the sea.
Yes.
And it doesn't just say that the storm went away. It says, and there was a great calm.
Yes. And I like how Luke described it more than Matthew. In Luke, Jesus rebuked the wind, and He said, "Peace, be still."
Yeah, and like I don't know if anybody has been on like really clear, crystal clear waters or on. So this went from a raging storm, probably 20-foot swells.
Yeah.
Crazy white water, I forget what they're called, but it was a mess. It was a mess of water.
Yeah.
Imagine like just taking a cup and just shaking it profusely. It went from that to glass.
Yes.
Like calm, fully reflective glass, so you could see the moon and the stars bouncing off the water.
Yes.
It was like that.
Yes.
You
And that's what we ask Him. He knows at this moment, like He knows that we're gonna go through hardship, we're gonna go through trials.
Yep.
But He wants us to rely on Him. Ask Him always. He can't just stop it whenever He wants to. He wants us to reach to Him and ask Him. And so I just love that. Thank you for that reminder.
And
Robbie.
not-
that was so good.
Not to ask Him if He can, but knowing He can.
Yes.
And just asking Him to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Like what we just talked about last week. The centurion was like, "I know you can. All you gotta do is say it."
Yeah.
Like I know the authority.
The authority that you have.
Yeah.
And like what He said, peace, be still.
Yeah.
And we have Christ in our heart. We have that authority. So when you're going through something and you feel out of chaos and everything, all the storm is in your head, and you just said, peace, be still. you will experience that.
Yep.
And so,
Alright, I'm gonna take a moment break.
okay. You want to pause?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you turn that off? Never mind.
Let's get you guys.